Late every night, after the spaceport lights went dim and most of the colony had gone to sleep, Elias Moore wiped his hands on his apron and looked around the quiet street. The smells of his small kitchen, fresh bread, roasted vegetables and warm soups, still lingered in the cool air. For years he had left bowls of food outside on old crates and small tables, thinking that stray animals or scavengers were hungry and alone. The colony was a hard place for anyone small or weak, and he liked the thought that someone or something could eat and survive because of him. Elias was a human chef, not a hero or a soldier. He did not seek attention. He did not even have a proper license to run a kitchen on the colony's outer ring. But he loved cooking and he loved people, or at least he loved helping those who could not help themselves. Most nights, after cleaning his pans and stacking plates, he would glance at the street, hoping no one had stolen the food, and go back to his small room above the kitchen. It was quiet, lonely, safe. One night, the cold wind carried a small rustle from the shadows near his kitchen. At first, Elias thought it was rats or the usual scavengers. But something about the movement made him pause. He stepped closer, holding a bowl of leftover soup, and froze. Hiding behind the steam rising from the street vents were small winged creatures. Their scales shimmered faintly in the dim light, almost like molten metal, and their eyes were wide, alert, and intelligent. Elias blinked. He had never seen creatures like this before. They were thin, smaller than a dog, with wings folded neatly against their backs. Their tails curled like ribbons around their tiny legs, and they moved in cautious, careful steps, almost like they were counting each one. The creatures looked frightened yet curious. Their gaze fixed on him and the bowl in his hand. He could have shouted. He could have run. He could have tried to chase them away. But something stopped him. Maybe it was their fear, or maybe it was the quiet trust in their eyes. Elias lowered the bowl slowly to the ground and sat down on the curb. He did not make a sound. He simply watched, waiting. One of the creatures stepped forward. Its tiny claws touched the rim of the bowl, then it sniffed the soup. Its wings twitched. Another crept beside it, peering over its shoulder. Slowly, carefully, the first creature took a small sip. Elias smiled. "You're hungry, aren't you?" he whispered. "I thought you might be." He did not know what he expected. Maybe the creatures would run away. Maybe they would attack. But instead, they continued to drink, glancing up at him occasionally. Elias slid the bowl closer, keeping his voice soft. "It's okay. You can stay. Just, don't get too close." The night passed with Elias sitting quietly, watching as the creatures ate. They were quick and careful, almost shy. He noticed small things. The way they tilted their heads when they heard a sound, the way their tails flicked when they were nervous, the way their tiny wings twitched when they were excited. He realized they were not just animals. They were intelligent, aware, and cautious. Unknown to Elias, these creatures were not lost. They were not scavengers. They were young intelligent scouts, sent by the planetary governor to observe humans on the colony. Their mission was secret. They were supposed to report back on human behavior, on how humans treated the weak, the small, and the helpless. But something was changing. As they ate the soup, they felt a strange sense of safety. Elias was different from the humans they had watched before. He did not threaten them. He did not ask for payment. He simply gave. Elias spent the rest of the night cleaning the dishes, keeping an eye on the creatures from his doorway. When he finally went upstairs to his room, he left the door slightly open. He imagined the small dragons curling up in the warmth of the kitchen floor, safe and fed. For the first time, he did not feel entirely alone. The next night, the creatures returned. There were 3 this time, slightly bolder, peeking around corners, waiting for Elias to finish his work. He noticed that they remembered the layout of the kitchen, the positions of crates and pots, the small hiding spots where they could stay safe. He laughed softly to himself. "You're clever little things, aren't you?" Again he sat on the curb, sliding a bowl toward them. This time they did not hesitate. They ate faster, but still carefully, glancing at him now and then. Elias told them a story as they ate, about his childhood on Earth, about the first time he learned to cook, about a storm that destroyed his old kitchen. The creatures listened, tilting their heads, flicking their wings in curiosity. Little by little, night by night, Elias grew attached. He did not know who they were, or what they wanted, or what they would do when they grew. All he knew was that they returned and he welcomed them. In his small, quiet way, he felt important for the first time in a long while. Meanwhile, high above the colony, in the governor's private observation deck, the young dragon scouts sent their reports. They described Elias Moore with words no human would use. Patient, gentle, unselfish, protective, unaware of observation. Their reports confused the governor. Most humans were aggressive, greedy, loud, or reckless. Elias was none of these things. The governor leaned back in his chair, frowning. This one human, he was different. And so the nights continued. Elias cooked. The dragons came. They ate quietly, watched carefully, and learned about humans in ways no one had ever recorded. Elias never asked their names. He never questioned where they came from. He only knew that they were hungry and he could help. In this quiet street of the colony, under the dim lights of the spaceport, something small and extraordinary was beginning. A human chef and a group of mysterious creatures were forming a bond that would change the way the galaxy saw humanity, though neither side realized it yet. For Elias, it was simply nights filled with warmth, the smell of fresh soup, and the gentle flutter of wings in the shadows. For the scouts, it was a lesson in humanity that no report could fully capture. And for the future, it was the beginning of a story that no one could predict. A story of kindness, curiosity, and the quiet power of feeding strangers one bowl at a time. The dragon babies returned every night without fail. As soon as the last of the spaceport lights flickered out, they appeared from the shadows, wings folded close to their bodies, tails curled around their small legs. Elias Moore had begun to recognize their soft rustling, the way their claws tapped on the metal crates, and even the quiet hissing sounds they made when they were excited. He smiled to himself every time he saw them, feeling a warmth that had little to do with the hot soups and bread he had left behind. He started changing his cooking to suit them. He noticed that when the bowls emptied faster, it meant they liked it. When they left more behind, it meant the flavor was too strong. So he adjusted the spices, making broths softer, adding a little sweetness here and there, sometimes cooking simple mashed vegetables that smelled familiar and comforting. He tried to imagine what little creatures like them would enjoy. "Here you go," he said one night, lowering a bowl near the smallest dragon. "I hope you like this one. It's my best yet." The dragon sniffed, tilted its head, and then carefully licked the soup. Its wings twitched in approval, and the other two nudged closer, eager to taste. Elias laughed softly. "I think you like it. Maybe I should make it more often." While they ate, Elias began talking to them. He spoke quietly as if telling secrets to children, though the dragons did not answer. He told them about Earth, where he had grown up before coming to the colony. He told them about the storms that had destroyed his old kitchen, about days when nothing went right, and about nights when he had felt completely alone. Sometimes he told funny stories about mistakes in cooking, like burning a pie so badly it had smoked out the whole neighborhood. The dragons listened, tilting their heads, blinking and flicking their tails. He never expected them to understand. And yet he felt as though they did. He spoke about failure, about trying again, about learning to keep moving forward even when life was hard. The dragons did not interrupt or comment, but their eyes were wide, watching, absorbing everything. What Elias did not know was that the dragons were recording everything, not with pens or devices, but with memories sharper than any human imagination. Every action he took, every word he spoke, every gesture of care was stored. They noticed how he made sure not to startle them, how he slid the bowls closer when they were nervous, and how he never demanded anything in return. They remembered how he cleaned the bowls after they had eaten, washing them gently even when he was tired. Their reports went back to the planetary governor every day. At first, the governor had expected a simple study, how humans behaved in public, how they reacted to fear, how they could be controlled. But the reports confused him. Elias Moore did not fit the profile. He was quiet, calm, and generous. He did not shout, did not hoard food, and did not demand loyalty in return for help. The governor frowned as he read the logs. Most humans were described as greedy, loud, and unpredictable. Elias was the opposite. He was careful, patient, and kind. The young scouts noted how he never asked for anything back, how he helped small creatures even when it was inconvenient, how he treated them like friends instead of tools or pets. It was unlike anything the governor had seen in the colony before. Over time, the dragons began staying longer than they were supposed to. At first, they had orders to appear for only a short while and then return to their reporting posts. But the night after night, something had changed. They felt safe with Elias. They liked the warmth of his kitchen, the sound of his stories, and the gentle way he moved around them. They no longer rushed to leave. One night, Elias noticed it. There were more rustles than usual in the shadows, more small wings folding and stretching. The creatures seemed relaxed, almost playful. One of them batted a piece of bread with its claw, tossing it gently into the air and catching it. Another fluttered its wings in delight, hopping from crate to crate. Elias laughed. "You're learning games too, huh?" he said. The dragons paused and looked at him. They had never seen a human laugh like that before, not a laugh that was soft, kind, and happy. For a moment, Elias wondered if they could feel joy the way he did. Perhaps they could. They had started to trust him. Night after night, Elias adjusted his routine. He saved extra bowls, keeping some broth warm in small containers so the dragons could eat even if he was busy with cleaning. Sometimes he hummed quietly while cooking, filling the street with soft, human music. The creatures responded by curling near the warmth of the kitchen vents, peeking at the pans, and tilting their heads as though they understood the rhythm of his songs. As the weeks passed, the young dragon's reports grew longer and more complicated. They began adding notes about Elias's habits, his emotions, and even the way he smiled when no one was watching. The governor read them and found himself unsettled. One scout wrote, "He does not seek reward. He does not act out of fear. He protects those smaller than himself without hesitation. He teaches without demanding. His kindness is constant." The governor rubbed his chin. He had studied humans for years. He had thought he understood them. But Elias Moore did not fit into any category he had known. He was a human who defied expectation, and the scouts' reports made it clear. This was not a creature to fear or control. This human might be something else entirely. Meanwhile, Elias never asked the dragons why they came or who sent them. He did not question their purpose or origin. For him, they were simply small creatures who needed warmth, food, and a safe place to rest. And in return, they gave him their trust, their presence, and a strange sense of companionship that made the long nights less lonely. It was a quiet rhythm. Night after night, soup was served, tails flicked, and small wings shivered in the cold air. Elias told stories, cooked meals, and cleaned bowls. The dragons watched, learned, and recorded. And slowly, unknowingly, the bond between human and dragon was growing stronger. The colony above slept, unaware that something extraordinary was happening in a small street kitchen on the outer ring. Elias Moore's kindness was not a headline, and it was not a command. It was simple, quiet, and consistent. And yet, it was changing everything. One small act at a time, one bowl at a time, the human chef was showing the galaxy a side of humanity that had never been seen before. Trouble began quietly at first. The colony's security forces increased patrols, moving slowly through the outer ring streets with bright lights and scanners that hummed and clicked. They were looking for unknown biological threats, as the official announcement said. Elias Moore did not know what that meant at first. He only noticed more guards walking past his kitchen, checking the walls and looking under crates. The dragon babies felt it immediately. They hissed softly and fluttered from shadow to shadow, eyes wide and tails curling nervously. Elias noticed the change in their behavior. The smallest one clung to the edge of a crate, trembling, while the others hid behind vents and under storage boxes. The creatures had never been this scared. Elias crouched down and whispered, "It's okay. You're safe here." He did not know what he was protecting exactly. They were small and unusual, but he had never seen creatures like them before. Still, he felt that whatever they were, they deserved protection. That night he adjusted his routine. He kept the kitchen lights low, moved quietly, and hid bowls of food in safe corners where the dragons could reach them without being seen. The dragon babies began to notice something important about Elias. He could have ignored them or even abandoned them to avoid trouble with the security forces. But he did not. Instead, he acted as if nothing had changed. He continued cooking, sliding bowls toward them, telling stories and humming softly. He even blocked some vents and corners with crates to give them safe hiding spots, carefully making sure the guards would not notice. As the patrols passed, Elias crouched near the floor, keeping his body low and watching the shadows. "Stay here," he whispered. "I'll take care of it." The dragons obeyed, trusting him completely. Their tails flicked nervously and their wings twitched, but they did not run. They had never felt a human act like this before. For the first time, the dragons' reports changed. They began to include not only observations of Elias's kindness but also the risks he took for them. They wrote about how he moved quietly while the guards walked past, how he hid them in crates and vents, and how he kept the kitchen safe. These were not cold, factual notes. They were emotional accounts of human courage and care. The governor read these reports with growing surprise. One scout wrote, "He does not flee when danger approaches. He does not ask for reward. He protects us, small and unknown, even though it could cost him." Another wrote, "This human chooses safety for us over his own. He acts without fear, without anger, without expectation. He is not like other humans." Meanwhile, Elias did not think about reports or governors. He only thought about the creatures in his kitchen. He noticed they had begun to trust him in ways they never had before. One night, the smallest dragon climbed onto a low shelf, its tiny claws tapping softly, and looked at him. Elias smiled and held out a small bowl. "It's okay. I've got you," he said. The dragons responded in ways they could not show to humans. They twitched their wings, nudged each other, and even pressed against the warm kitchen walls. They felt safe in Elias's presence. The bond between them grew stronger, and it became clear to them that this human was different from the others they had observed. As the patrols continued, Elias quietly improved the hiding places. He moved crates closer to walls, covered vents with cloths, and placed bowls where the dragons could reach them without risk. Every night he adjusted a little more, thinking about their comfort and safety. Sometimes he hummed quietly to keep them calm. Sometimes he spoke softly, telling them, "It's okay. Nothing will happen to you here." One night, a patrol stopped near the kitchen for longer than usual. The dragons froze. Elias moved carefully in front of them, placing his body between the creatures and the patrol lights. He did not speak. He did not move abruptly. He simply stood there quietly, waiting. The patrol scanned the street, found nothing, and finally moved on. Elias exhaled quietly, and the dragons emerged from hiding. After that night, the dragons' reports included more than just his kindness. They began sending warnings, emotional notes about humans in general, about the value of care and protection. They wrote about Elias's courage, his patience, and his instinct to protect the weak. "Humans can be dangerous," one note said, "but this human is not. He chooses to protect even when it costs him." Elias continued his quiet nights, preparing warm broths and soft bread, leaving bowls where the dragons could find them. He spoke to them as he always had, telling stories about Earth, about his childhood, about his mistakes and lessons. The dragons listened closely, sometimes tilting their heads, sometimes flicking their wings in curiosity. The dragons also began to interact more with each other under his protection. They played quietly, batted small pieces of food, and explored the safe corners Elias had created. They seemed happier, less nervous, and more confident. They had begun to understand that this human's protection was real. He was not afraid of them. He did not judge them. He chose to keep them safe. The governor, reading these new reports, felt a mixture of surprise and curiosity. Humans were supposed to be selfish, greedy, and loud. Yet Elias Moore was none of these things. He acted without reward, without fear, without demand. He cared for creatures no one else would notice. The governor began to question everything he thought he knew about humans. And in the small street kitchen, Elias Moore never thought about reports, governors, or data. He only thought about the creatures who had come to trust him. Night after night, he provided warmth, food, and safety. Night after night, the dragons stayed longer, played quietly, and learned something new about humans, that some of them were capable of selfless protection, even when it was dangerous. It was a quiet struggle. Patrols continued, scanning for threats. Guards walked past the kitchen, unaware of the small dragons hiding in vents and crates. Elias moved quietly, protected them, and offered them comfort. And every night, the bond grew stronger, between a human who acted out of kindness, and creatures who were beginning to see the best side of humanity. In the reports, the young scouts wrote the truth: humans could protect the weak. Even when it cost them. Even when danger was near. Even when no one was watching. And Elias Moore, a simple chef on the outer ring of the colony, had proven it. The night was quieter than usual, but Elias Moore moved through his kitchen with the same calm routine. Bowls of warm broth and soft bread were laid out carefully, one near the vent, one by the crate, and one at the small shelf he had cleared for the dragon babies. He hummed softly while stirring a pot, enjoying the smell of food and the gentle movement of creatures around him. Unseen by Elias, a shadow moved along the street outside. The governor had decided to see the human chef for himself. He did not arrive with guards or cameras. Instead, he came in secret, disguised in a simple cloak and a mask that hid his face. He wanted to understand what the scouts had described. Could a single human really act this way? Could a human protect and care for unknown creatures without fear or reward? The governor waited in the shadows, observing. He watched as Elias bent down to place a bowl near the smallest dragon. The little creature approached slowly, sniffed the broth, and then drank carefully. Another dragon nudged a piece of bread, and the third flapped its tiny wings in excitement. Elias watched them, his face gentle, his voice calm. "Easy there," Elias said softly, lifting a small claw that reached for another bowl. "Take turns. There's enough for everyone." The governor was surprised. He had read reports of humans being greedy and aggressive. Yet here was a human calmly managing 3 creatures, scolding them gently when they squabbled, feeding them one by one with care and patience. There was no fear in Elias's eyes, no anger, no expectation of reward. Only kindness. Elias moved from bowl to bowl, speaking quietly. I hope you like this. I made it a little sweeter tonight. You need energy to grow strong. He watched as they ate carefully, tails flicking, wings trembling with excitement. He hummed softly as he cleaned a small spill, his movements careful not to startle them. The governor leaned forward in the shadows, fascinated. This was not what he had expected. The reports had described a kind human, but seeing it in person was different. Elias's kindness was not a story or a list of actions. It was real, visible in every gesture, every word, every glance. At one point, one of the dragons accidentally knocked a bowl over. Elias sighed gently, lifted it, and scolded softly, "Careful, little one. I know you're hungry, but you must be careful." The creatures froze for a moment, then returned to their food. The governor could not look away. Curiosity finally got the better of the governor. He stepped forward, forgetting to keep his disguise intact. The cloak slipped slightly, revealing a hint of authority, and the mask shifted. Elias turned slowly and his eyes widened, not in fear but in calm observation. The governor expected panic. He expected the human to shout or run or demand explanations. But Elias did none of these things. He looked at the governor as if he were simply another visitor, perhaps someone worried about the dragon babies. You're here," Elias said softly. "Are you hungry? Did someone forget to feed you? Are the babies being treated well somewhere else?" The governor froze. His disguise failed, and yet Elias did not falter. There was no fear in his tone. No demands, no bowing, no hesitation. He spoke with simple concern, as if addressing children who had come to him for warmth and food. The moment stunned the governor. He had expected submission or fear. Instead he saw empathy, attention, and care. The dragon babies noticed the new figure but did not run. Elias's calm presence reassured them. He moved to the smallest, lifting a bowl closer and whispering, "It's okay. I've got you." The dragon drank slowly, wings twitching, eyes half closed in trust. Elias then fed the others, one by one, gently scolding them if they fought or rushed. The governor could not believe it. This human, a simple chef, treated creatures he barely understood with more patience and respect than anyone in the colony had ever shown. No threats, no orders, no loyalty tests. Only care. "Why aren't you afraid?" the governor asked softly, stepping closer. Elias blinked. Afraid of what? They're hungry. They're small. They need help. That's all. The governor realized something important. Elias did not see power, fear, or danger. He only saw need. He only acted to help. To Elias, the dragons were not scouts or spies or tools of the governor. They were children who came hungry and he fed them. The governor studied him carefully. Elias did not ask who he was, did not demand respect, and did not even realize he was standing before authority. For the first time, the governor understood the reports. Humanity could act in ways that were unexpected. Humanity could protect the weak, not out of strategy or reward, but because it was the right thing to do. The dragons, sensing the calm in Elias, edged closer to him. They did not hide. They ate slowly, wings folding and tails curling around him. Elias hummed quietly, spoke softly, and cleaned their bowls without a pause. The governor watched, silently taking in every detail. "You are different," the governor said finally, not as a command but as an observation. Elias looked up at him and smiled faintly. "Different? Maybe. I just do what I can." The governor nodded slowly, realizing that no threats or orders were needed. Elias Moore, a human chef, had shown what humanity could be: quiet, patient, kind, and protective. That simple act, feeding those who could not help themselves, spoke louder than any law, weapon, or fleet. The night passed slowly. Elias continued feeding and caring for the dragon babies as if nothing unusual had happened. The governor remained, observing, understanding, and quietly learning. In that small street kitchen, beneath dim lights and rising steam, a small but extraordinary lesson was happening, one the governor would not forget. When the patrols finally passed and the night was quiet again, the governor left without a word. Elias did not notice. He continued his routine, humming, stirring pots, and watching over the creatures that trusted him. He had fed hungry children that night, and that was all that mattered. The governor, however, returned to his records and paused on the reports once more. Humans were supposed to be loud, selfish, and dangerous. Yet Elias Moore had shown that even one human could act with care and courage, even when surrounded by risk. That quiet, simple action would be remembered, not as a story of power, but as a story of kindness, patience, and unexpected strength. And in the kitchen, Elias continued his quiet work. Bowls were filled, stories were told, and dragon wings twitched happily in the dim light. He did not know he had stood before power that night. To him, they were simply children who had come hungry and he had fed them. That was all that mattered. The night the governor made his decision, Elias Moore was busy in his small kitchen, humming quietly and stirring a pot of warm broth. Outside, the colony streets were silent, except for the soft rustle of wings as the dragon babies explored the corners of the kitchen. They had grown bolder in the last weeks, moving freely, tilting their heads, and sometimes even playing quietly with scraps of bread. Elias smiled at them, unaware that this night would change the future. High above the colony, in the governor's observation room, the final reports from the scouts lay open. The notes described Elias's consistent kindness, his calm courage, and his selfless protection of creatures that could easily have been ignored. The governor read each one carefully, watching the small dragon babies move near the human chef in a warm kitchen on the outer ring. His decision was clear. The spy program that had sent these young dragons to observe humans ended that night. There would be no more secret reports, no more hidden surveillance. Instead, the governor ordered open cooperation between humans and the other species in the colony. He realized that Elias Moore's quiet acts had shown something the galaxy needed to see, that humans were capable of kindness, patience and protection in ways that could not be measured by data or weapons. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Elias moved from bowl to bowl, checking each one for spills and adding a little extra broth. One of the dragons hopped onto a crate, eyeing a small pile of soft bread, while the others clustered near the vent, wings twitching in excitement. He laughed softly. Easy, easy. There's plenty for everyone. The first official step of cooperation came quickly. Notices were sent across the colony, inviting representatives from other species to share knowledge, food, and culture with humanity. Elias did not know the details. He only knew that more creatures began arriving, some small and timid like the dragon babies, others taller or more unusual in appearance. He welcomed them all as he had always welcomed the dragons: warm food, gentle care, and a safe place to rest. Elias's kitchen became the first shared cultural space between species. Small tables were arranged so that everyone could sit together. Bowls of different foods, designed to suit various tastes, filled the kitchen with smells from across the galaxy. Elias moved among the guests, stirring pots, replenishing bowls, and occasionally telling stories about Earth or about the mistakes he had made in cooking. The visitors listened closely, intrigued by his calm presence and simple kindness. The dragon babies, now recognized as official members of the colony, were no longer spies. They moved freely, exploring the kitchen, interacting with humans and other species alike. They still flicked their tails and twitched their wings, but now they did so without fear. They had found a home and they had found trust in Elias Moore. Word of Elias's actions spread far beyond the colony. Across the galaxy, messages circulated, not about weapons, fleets, or power struggles, but about a single human who had fed unknown creatures simply because they were hungry. The stories described the small kitchen, the quiet chef, and the dragons who trusted him. Reports were shared in councils, trading posts, and among explorers. Every message carried the same lesson: kindness could change the way beings saw each other. Other species began sending observers not to spy but to learn. They came quietly at first, curious about this human who had earned trust without force or command. They watched Elias feed, listen, and care for creatures of all kinds. And slowly the observers began to understand. Humanity's strength was not always in fleets or weapons. It was in patience, protection, and generosity, the quiet acts that could build trust across species and worlds. Back in his kitchen, Elias did not notice the change he had caused. He continued his work as he always had, filling bowls, cleaning pots, and talking to the dragon babies. "You'll like this," he said softly, placing a warm broth near the smallest one. "It's just like last night, but a little sweeter." The dragon licked the rim of the bowl, eyes bright, wings twitching. The others followed, moving carefully, waiting their turn. The governor visited occasionally after that, quietly observing, but he never interfered. He had learned something important. Elias Moore did not need supervision or instruction. He acted out of instinct, out of kindness, and that instinct had changed the way humans were seen across the galaxy. As the days turned into weeks, Elias's kitchen became a meeting place, a place where species could share knowledge, food, and stories. Humans learned from others and others learned from humans. Yet at the center of it all was the simple act that had started everything: feeding creatures in need without question, without fear, without reward. Elias often paused to watch the dragon babies. They had grown stronger and more playful, chasing scraps of bread, curling their wings around each other, and exploring every corner of the kitchen. They still looked at him with wide, intelligent eyes, but now there was trust, confidence, and a sense of belonging. Elias smiled and whispered, "You're safe here. You always will be." The galaxy noticed. Other colonies and species began to send representatives to learn, not to spy. Councils discussed the human who had changed the approach to interspecies relations. Scholars wrote notes, explorers told stories, and even children in distant colonies learned about the chef who fed strangers without knowing their origins. Elias Moore became a symbol not of power but of quiet, enduring kindness. In the small kitchen on the outer ring, nothing seemed extraordinary to Elias. He continued to cook, clean, and care for his unusual guests. Yet his simple actions had reached far beyond the walls, far beyond the streets of the colony, and far beyond the expectations of the galaxy. The dragon babies curled near the vents, wings folded, tails wrapped around their bodies. They had learned to trust, to feel safe, and to enjoy life. Elias had given them more than food. He had given them protection, patience, and warmth. And through them, the galaxy had learned something important. Humanity could earn trust not with weapons or power, but with quiet kindness served warm, one bowl at a time. Elias Moore never thought of himself as a hero. He was just a human cooking food and telling stories, helping those who needed it. Yet in doing so, he had opened doors between species, healed fear with patience, and taught the galaxy that even small acts could make a big difference. And every night, as he hummed and stirred pots, the dragon babies ate, played, and trusted him completely, their soft wings brushing the warm air, their tails curling around safety, and their eyes shining with wonder at the human who had welcomed them without question.